Hello and welcome to In Sequence, the comics podcast for everyone. I'm your host for the week, Robin B., and with me are your delightful panelists.
Oh, hello, I'm Matt. I go first.
Hi, I'm Jillian.
And I'm Scout.
And this week, we are discussing Run Away With Me Girl by Battan. When I say it, it sounds like baton, like the object, but I don't know any other way to pronounce it. Run Away With Me Girl is a Yuri manga, written and illustrated by Battan, serialized in Kodansha's Hatsu Kiss magazine from 2018 to 2020 in Japanese. It was then collected into 3 volumes, which made their way into English between 2022 and 2023. To give a brief summary of what we'll be discussing today, Momo is a lonely 20-something working at an optometrist's office. She's stolen over her high school girlfriend Midori, who broke up with her on graduation day because she felt, quote, too old to be fooling around dating girls. When Midori comes to the shop one day, the two reconnect and sparks immediately start flying. Then Midori quickly reveals that she's engaged to a man and she's pregnant. Damn, girl. The two pick up their friendship anyway, with Momo's love for Midori causing her a lot of pain until she learns that Midori might not be as excited for the marriage as it seems, and Momo starts to wonder if there's a chance it might not be too late for them after all. So panelists, to start us off, were you familiar with this manga before? Is this your first time reading? And how did you feel about it? Generally.
I feel like I've heard of it before. Like, I know I have heard the title before, but I had no idea, like, what the actual plot was.
This was on my library bookshelves. I was looking at manga at my library last year, and I actually picked it up and I read it then, and this was a reread.
Nice.
I remember being a little bit underwhelmed with it the first time I read it, but I think I got more out of it this time, and I liked it.
I hadn't heard of it until we were scrolling around looking for things to read in June, and I saw it on like our list, but I loved this book.
Yeah, I had a good time with it.
I liked it way more than I liked Koboku. I know Scout and I had had a long conversation last time about Koboku, but I liked it way more than that.
Cool.
It's much better than Koboku.
I never read it before either. It was just like, you know how you do. You occasionally just Google Yuri manga to put on a big list and then read 10% of it eventually. I had a good time with it. I would not say this isn't even my favorite Yuri we've read for the podcast.
No.
But I would give it like a B-, I would say. I had a good time, but I don't know if it's going to stick around for me.
I was going to say, like, a B+ is the score I was going to give it. I was like, you know what? This was enjoyable. It was good read. There were some things about it that I was just like, I think it could have used a pass through a copy editor maybe once more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like overall, I really enjoyed it. It's, like you said, definitely not like my favorite Yuri manga that I've read, but it was still an enjoyable read. I had a good time with it. I would probably read it again. Yeah.
It's very readable. Like it feels like, I kept thinking it almost feels like soap opera-y in a way, where it's just kind of like, you just sort of, it's like background reading almost. In the way that's like background watching. This sounds like less, it sounds meaner than I made it to be. I was just kind of
I was reading it while I was working today, so like that's...
No, I think that's exactly what I mean by I had a great time and I loved reading it. Like it's the kind of thing that you read the same way you watch Suits. Like you care about the people and you're also like, this kind of is not the best thing I've ever seen. It kind of has some problems.
What nonsense are they going to get into next?
Yeah. So this is also, I mentioned it was published first in Hatsu Kiss, which is a defunct magazine. It's a josei magazine, which I guess maybe that is also what you would classify how to be relationship.
Yeah, I think that's right. Josei generally is a category, like a demographic category, like shonen or shoujo, but for older, like one step older than shoujo readers.
Yeah, it's like our age, 18 to 40.
Yeah. Which like these are all like marketing categories, so who really cares? But it is interesting to see there are some like such like clear hallmarks of like, this is a little more mature. It's dealing with adults. There's like just like casual nudity, which is interesting. It's funny how like in How to Be a Relationship, all of the nudity was like during sex scenes. And in this book, it's all just when they're like in the hot tub. I don't know. There's just something about the like, it just feels a little more like grown up than I think some of the like, I don't know, like Girls Love or whatever you might have read before. But yeah, to get us started before we dive into spoilers. Yeah, it's a little bit of like a will they, won't they kind of thing. It's from the perspective of Momo, who is the single person in this manga. I guess we can start out like the very first chapter is when it kind of follows their high school relationship and the end of that that. So I'm curious about how people felt about Midori and Momo from the beginning, because in that first chapter, I was like, oh, Midori is a demon. Like the thing, like they're like high school girlfriends, and she just like breaks up with her with no warning on graduation day, which is already like shocking. And then they meet back up, and she's immediately like kissing her on the cheek and like holding her hand, and then is like casually like, oh, by the way, I'm getting married. It was just such a like callous seeming thing that I was just like, oh, is Midori like evil?
Yeah, I know that like that's kind of a trope in a lot of like Yuri manga is like, it's okay to kiss a girl when you're in high school, and like you can have a girlfriend in high school, but once you graduate, you need to get serious, find a man, and start a family. And I think like in general, the approach that Battan took to that particular trope was really nice. I think I was very worried it was going to be like one of those like, oh, it's trying to persuade her that like, no, it's okay. But it was, as we'll talk about in spoilers, not that reasoning. But yeah, the very first chapter, I'm like, oh, am I really supposed to root for these two? Or are we going to be like finding a different relationship in this book?
I mean, I don't have anything new to add. I felt pretty similarly. I was like very concerned.
Yeah, it's concerning. Do we have art thoughts? There's a very distinctive style to this. The faces in particular I found in this, I don't know exactly how to describe, except for my favorite detail of the faces, which is Midori's like eyeliner wings physically extending off the side of her face, like they're almost antenna or something.
Like past her hair so often.
Yeah.
Her eyelashes are so long. Yeah, I really liked the art style. I especially like the way Battan draws faces and eyes. The line quality feels very sparse and clean, but everything is also really soft and curvy. Feels very rounded without being too hyper stylized or like falling into a chibi proportion.
Yeah.
Or just becoming sort of blobby.
The closest thing we get, I think, to the chibi style is like Momo occasionally there'd be a panel of her in what I kept thinking of as like Peanuts face.
Yes,
where she has this very like Charlie Brown, like wide, mouth open, eyes wide expression when she's like shocked. And it was like every time that happened, it really hit me. It was so funny.
It's really, I like those panels a lot. She does. Charlie Brown's a great connection there. She's doing the arg.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The feelings shapes are back. The sparkles are here. The heart-shaped speech bubbles I really loved.
Yeah, the feeling shapes are back, and they're semi-diegetic now because the characters actively talk about seeing sparkles, and it's metaphorical in the text, obviously, but then also physical and literal in the art, which I think is fun.
Yeah, that was so funny when is it Momo's friend when she goes to visit, who's like, I see the sparkles.
Yeah, when it comes to the art in this book, I'm going to say things that sounds contradictory. I actually really enjoy the way that she draws faces. I think it's really interesting. I also think that they can sometimes look a little too samey.
There's a little bit of same face.
Yeah, I had trouble distinguishing between people a couple of times.
Definitely a few moments where I was like, if they didn't have different colored hair, I would not know who is who in this moment.
The character, is it Komari?
Yeah, Momo and Komari specifically.
Yeah.
There's a couple moments.
Which Komari just always kept reminding me of Final Fantasy X, but...
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Oh,
the cat person.
Version of this manga, but it's Komari from Final Fantasy.
Hell yeah.
This is my friend Komari. Yeah. Things are very different on the island.
She's a lesbian teenager that I met on the internet.
And
on
also
the internet,
a cat.
No one knows you're a blue cat person. I guess mainly the pre-spoiler thought is fashion is back. There's a lot of great like full body drawings of the main girls with lots of like very nice flowy clothing that I was appreciating. It reminded me of what I forget what her name is even is the character from How to Be a Relationship, but the one who wasn't psycho.
Oh, I can't remember.
But
any
she
names.
had, the one who was like much more well dressed. She always had these very like nice, like flouncy kind of, things on. And that's a lot of what Midori wore in the beginning chapters of this too. Miwa. That's right.
Miwa. Yeah. Midori's looks are very good in this book.
Yeah, they're great.
I forgot I had one thing that I wanted to touch on, which is how there's different themes, tropes, and tones between Yaoi and Yuri. And like the gendering of specific things that show up in these manga genres is very interesting to me. One thing is that I would say this is quite a sad book. It has a happy ending, but there's a lot of sadness in it. And saying this while staring meaningfully at the camera, I would say sad Yuri is much more common than sad Yaoi. Which could mean nothing, or
oh boy,
or could mean everything,
right.
Or just a trend that I've noticed that I think is interesting. I don't know that I have anything much smarter to say about it than that, but I do think that it's something to think about.
Yeah. Doomed Yuri is definitely like it does feel like a much bigger deal than Doomed Yaoi for any number of reasons. Who could say? Speaking of things being sad and doomed, just to give a quick content note, the comic does contain one scene of domestic violence, and there's some discussion of it that doesn't get too dark or detailed, but it becomes a thing that is on your mind for the rest of the book after it happens. So it will naturally also be a little bit of what we talk about, just as a heads up. So I guess just to give a quick, slightly more spoilery overview of what happens for the rest of this book after the pair meet up. Midori invites Momo back to her apartment, and she's very excited. They eventually end up having dinner with Midori's husband, Tazune. Momo's feeling very nervous and oh no, they're not going to want me here, interrupting the relationship, before it quickly becomes clear that Tazune is kind of a piece of shit. At first, it kind of seems like in a, more or less, unfortunately, normal way of just being a jerk, being dismissive, telling Midori, his pregnant fiance, to get up and get him things while he's sitting at the table. But eventually there is a scene of him striking Midori, which we can talk about the reasoning, his incel arc that informs why that happens, which is wild. And after that point, Midori and Momo end up getting much closer. They go on a couple of trips together, and Midori eventually confides in Momo what has actually happened. And at that point, they are determined to stick together, to run away together. And so they end up telling Momo's mom and sister what's happening, and eventually talking to Tazune and getting him out of the picture entirely, which we'll touch on all that. But just in case you didn't read it and are still here, I wanted to give you a quick overview. So anything we want to touch on before we start talking about what a piece of shit Tazune is?
I didn't read I wrote my notes and then I put in my plus ones.
Yeah, Matt's plus
but all of us put the Tazune bullshit first.
All of us are we are hitting Tazune with hammers.
This man, I genuinely was not expecting that to be part of the plot line. I was certain it was, like I said going into this, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those where it's they're kind of dancing around their feelings and stuff like that. And I, was not expecting a scene of domestic violence to be part of the inciting incident for her realizing, oh, I actually don't like men. That being said, I think a lot of her response to it was really the portrayal of her response was really good. She has these moments of he grabs her shoulder at one point and she has this very noticeable freeze response. She refuses to talk about it. It is so clearly the thing that is affecting her. So it was really that is kind of the point where the book was kind of took that turn of oh, this is actually something more than just a nice little fluffy Yuri that we're reading here. That being said, kill him.
Yes. I mean, she does decide to leave him, but it's not an instant thing where she's I'm moving out. It is much more what felt like a more realistic thing, which is just when he even after she goes off with Momo, when he shows up again, there's a moment where it's she's gonna go back home with him, where it does kind of portray that as this is not an easy situation to get out of. you know? Mm-hmm. I have very mixed feelings about that aspect of the book. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's like a very sadly common thing that happens. It's like, it's interesting to me to have a book that is talking about that stuff. Mm-hmm. I do think the tone of it, while it isn't just an instant, like, we're going to run away and be fine, there is a way in which it doesn't really go too deep into it. It feels like another reason for her to leave him, to make it easier for her to justify leaving him. Mm-hmm. Whereas at first I really thought it was going to be like, he is kind of a jerk, or even if he wasn't, even if he was a normal guy, I think there is kind of something about the fact that he is such a demon that like makes it almost lets Midori and Momo off the hook. Like, there's a more complex story, I think, to tell about a woman who is engaged to a man who is like totally fine. And like, she doesn't love him, but like everything is going fine and she could have a totally good life. But then her old flame comes back and they decide to run away together. And it's about her choosing like happiness over stability or whatever. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Tazune is just like an openly shitty person, it kind of makes it so that like the conflict is never like, do I leave this stable life behind to like chase the person I love? It becomes like, well, this life sucks anyway. So it feels like Momo is kind of like rescuing her from it. And it feels a little less complex. Like, you don't have to wrestle with the fact that like she's cheating on Tazune by the end of this book, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's an asshole, so fuck him, who cares? If he was just like an average guy, I think there's like some moral complexity there that would be interesting to deal with, that I think like this book sort of abandons by having him be awful.
Yeah.
So I'm mixed on it.
We do get a little bit of that with Kamari's storyline, even though it's not, as serious as like being engaged to someone, but she does have that relationship where she's like, I am closeted, I live in a small town, my neighbor is like this super nice guy, he asked me out, and I was like, this is a safe option for me, and she wants to tell him, but she, kind of keeps putting it off. So I feel like we do get a little bit of that with her storyline, which, by the way, I really liked Kamari. I thought she was a very fun character, and she was my favorite, and I did really like her storyline of like, I know this is not good for him or me, but like, this is my safe option right now.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really nice plot to include as well. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Rob and I also dislike when books like feel the need to make their protagonists, or just stories feel a need to make their protagonists sort of like unassailable. And I think that both of these characters have other complications, because I remember like brushing my teeth after like finishing, the second volume, thinking like it kind of feels like this is a mechanical choice rather than a character choice. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I'm like, but the rest of the stuff that you're giving me in this book, like Midori's sort of like compat feelings, those all feel really like lived in and real, and things that I respect. So I kind of don't hold too hard to the stuff about like Tazune being a piece of shit as a mechanical thing.
Yeah. And it does also give us that moment at the end, like after they come back from the trip, when Tazune is there to meet them and Midori is going with him. There's a real sense of like danger and like the sadness of that, where she feels stuck, even though he's like physically abusing her. And it also gives the moment of Momo like stop, like putting her foot down and being like, no, stop. Like, you don't have to do this. And like, she, for this whole, there's been a lot of stuff with her the whole series of like kind of her just floating along and not really making any decisions, and her being able to stand up for Midori in that moment feels really powerful, because the stakes of her not doing that. So there's some good and bad to it. I just, to me, it felt like it did kind of turn down the complexity a little bit, just because of that, because you're immediately just like, well, yeah, you should definitely leave him, as opposed to being like, oh, it's kind of where you never feel bad for him. Whereas if he had just been like a boring dude, you'd be like, oh, well, I'm glad these two are together, but it kind of sucks for Tazune,
It also, some of the stuff like early on with the like, you can go like kiss girls when you're young, it kind of excuses some of that by making Tazune an asshole. And I don't know, I would like to not give the heterosexuals everything that they want in this book.
There's something there too, where it's like, I think personally, for like where this story ends up of them like choosing each other and running away together and all that, I like the idea that choice is because they are in love, and because queer love can be liberating, and it's something you can just choose as like a positive alternative, which they are doing. But also in this book, it is also an escape from a very negative situation. And I like it more without that weighing on that decision, where it's more about their love for each other as opposed to the situation that Midori is escaping.
Well, and I think it's also really common, just like in real world, like real lived life. Like I know multiple people who have been married in, presumably straight relationships, who have left those marriages because one or more of them were queer and are perfectly, like, it was the perfect decision for everyone. Sometimes people are hurt, sometimes people are not, right? Like that is a thing that happens with people. And it's like, it's okay to tell those complicated stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all of that makes a lot of sense.
I did note that Scout also pointed out a character that she thinks sucks that I also think sucks.
Oh, yeah.
And that is,
I think we get a woman incel in this.
Domyo sucks. When she took the picture of Momo and Midori, I was like, oh, why are we doing this? What is going to happen? I
hate this motherfucker.
Pissed. I'm like, you cannot be doing this. And also the fact that she, like, knows that her friend is engaged and pregnant and is still like very blatantly making the moves on her friend's man in front of her.
Wild.
It calls her to invite herself over to her apartment to tell the man that she loves him.
Her love.
It's
crazy. It's crazy.
Honestly, they're made for each other.
Truly, yeah.
You know what? So true. Yeah, she was wild to me. I was like, I genuinely was like, are there people who act like this? Because I could not imagine
Could not be me.
The audacity being within someone to do any of this stuff.
Yeah,
this
for sure.
Sounds like something that I would read on like an r/relationships Reddit story.
It's Am I the
Like
asshole?
it reads like going on there and be like, am I the asshole for wanting to confess my feelings that are true to me, to my my boss's husband or my boss's fiance?
Don't worry, I called her ahead of time to ask.
Yeah, she said it's okay if I come over.
Yeah.
She's cool with it. Edit 1. She is pregnant.
She's pregnant, but I don't think that the baby is really a factor in how I'm feeling about everything.
Edit 2, as you pointed out, yes, I did spy on her and take a photograph. Without her knowledge.
But in my defense, she was cheating, so...
Yeah, she's such a girlcel. I did want to mention that the sort of like incel aspect of Tazune, though, because I think that is really interesting, where when he hits Midori, there is a like little flashback sequence to him like being just kind of like a nerdy little shit in high school and some girls laughing at him and it making him feel this like total misogynistic rage at that. And he just like kind of flashes back to that when he's having a conversation with Midori and ends up hitting her. And I think there's just something interesting there about like, I don't know, just interrogating what his feelings on that are. It is in no way trying to excuse him or be like, this is why it's not his villain origin story.
Yeah,
it's just
he literally has a moment where he's like, I have my own trauma, and they're like, okay, fine, but we're still leaving. Like, she's still leaving you.
Yeah,
like,
he tries to like use it against her to be like, well, girls laughed at me in high school, so like it's kind of okay that I hit you. Like there is something really interesting to me there about going into like the psychology of this, and just it's very it doesn't go to pains to be like, and here's why he's wrong. It just shows you how like insane this is and lets you draw your own conclusions because you're assumedly like not a monster who's reading the book. But I don't know, it's just a weird, I think I've so rarely seen like the inside of that thought process of like, someone's own self-justification for their own like completely insane behavior. It's just, there's just something that felt really like, I felt gross. Like it just feels really creepy to be inside his head in that moment. And it's just like really like compellingly unsettling, I think.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really interesting tool. I agree. It's not written as a villain origin story. It almost made like contrasting to ways that those kinds of flashbacks are used in other media. I think it makes him worse Like it paints him as a 100%. Much worse person and almost tells me like, okay, here's what the author believes about this character.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's almost the purpose it serves. It's more like Battan just being like, here, no, this dude's a piece of shit. And that's what you should think about him.
And because it also explains like the rest of his, not explains, but the rest of his behavior like is in line with that.
Yeah.
A person who's been carrying around this like horrible misogynistic rage. It's like part of the way that he acts that out is hitting his fiance. And part of the way that he acts that out is just like treating women like shit and not looking at them as people and feeling justified in doing that because he's like, well, I got laughed at. So like, what do you want me to do? It's like, it's a really, it's again, it just makes me feel gross to like read those parts. And it does feel like, like the author being like, here is this self-justification that this character has. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah. Just disturbing.
It's also, I really think the art style is interesting in that flashback. The moments where he's got like, the girls are laughing at him are all just these silhouettes with like these very sharp white outlines for their faces and eyes. And it is so like, so it is that kind of like the visual language that you see that in like animes and stuff all the time where it's like, you've got the crowd of like silhouettes and it's just the eyes and faces are lit up and they're laughing at somebody. And it's like that exact kind of like visual language being used.
Yeah, it's like he is turning these women into monsters in his mind so that he can feel like the victim and thus feel like he is justified in doing what he's doing. It's that scene is just really well done.
Yeah. There's a this is just how things are about him where he like makes himself feel like he's a normal guy that it is sinister when you look at it from his perspective. But you see the same thing with these other two characters, right? In Midori, she has this is just how things are that is more about, of course, I just marry a man the first time that it makes sense to in my life.
Yeah. She's like resigned.
Yeah, exactly. There's a resignation among all of these characters. I mean, we see it with Momo, we see it with Komari. They all have an expectation of what the world is, and all of them are wrong.
Yeah. And I like the Komari stuff is also great because it is like you said, Jill, it's like she's with this dude who's just like fine. Like they're good friends. They get along. It's just like she's not in love with him because he's a boy, but she's like, I don't know. I could do this. And so it is that kind of like that maybe more common version of like the compet thing. And you're just like, well, it's just how I do it. But then it's when she sees Momo and Midori together and like sees what they have and takes that picture of them on the beach, which is such a wonderful thing that comes back a couple times, is when she realizes like she does have that moment of being like, I'm not escaping from anything, but there's something out there for me that's better. And like, I'm going after that now because I want it and because I want to be honest about like who I am and how I feel. And I think like that idea of like seeing a model of like someone who's 10 years older than you and going through this similar struggle, but like found a way through it and that giving you like the courage to be who you are. I think that storyline was like really, really powerful.
Yeah. That moment of taking the picture is actually something that I think this book is really good at, which is using the fact that it's a comic book to tell a story, using the images and the panels to tell that story. I think especially everything with regards to Komari's photography is really good at laying things out in sort of a visual metaphor. I do think it is a little bit hindered by the fact that like Komari kind of calls out some of that metaphor directly. But I do think that like compared to some of the other books that we've read, which rely way more on words and are more like illustrated novels, right? I think that this book does very well the comic book thing, the thing that we are meant to do in this medium.
Yeah.
At the end of the third book, there's, they're talking about Momo and Midori getting together, and every time they're talking about the fact that like she was with Tazune, they're like acting as if the two were already married, which we know is not what happened because she uses all of her funds for her wedding dress and for the wedding, like to splurge on their little trip. And like, that's
such a
point.
Baller move. I love that.
That's very good.
She throws cash all over the hostel.
Yeah, that was actually like, she just throws all of that cash in the air. That was incredible. But there's like all these weird moments where it's like you're cheating on, like you're a homewrecker because you're like, she's married, and it's like they're not. They're engaged And it could, like, obviously we are American. I'm not Japanese. It could be a cultural thing where it's like you're basically treating it as already being married. It could just be translation stuff, but like the way even he is like, we're married, like you have to come home with me. And it's like, no, you haven't signed any papers yet, actually. Like this is a social contract at the moment. And it like is brought up a lot in the last book that it just kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah, it did feel almost like there was a point at which the team forgot their own lore, because it really was sort of like from a certain point onward, they were referring to them as husband and wife instead of as fiancés. And it was a little bit like, that's strange. I think I just basically wrote it off as like, well, that's not true, but I understand the reasoning behind it or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like if it had been a one-off thing, I would have been like, oh, they're just, being dramatic. But it was like repeated several times. And I'm like, okay, wait, did I miss something? Did they actually get married and I missed it? Like, what's going on?
It happens a lot on the trip that they take, especially the second destination. And yeah, I don't know what to think about it. Maybe it is a cultural thing. I'm unsure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, or even could even be a translation thing, even not going as far as a cultural thing. I mean, it could be either way, either or neither. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or both.
Or both.
How did everybody feel about Momo as a character? Because I found her slightly frustrating in the beginning, and I think by the end of her arc, it really comes through. Like the moments when she finally puts her foot down and says, like, no, this is what I want, and this is what I believe in, and this is what I'm going to fight for. I think all of that works really well. But the time leading up to that could be a little frustrating for me with just how passive she was.
Yeah, I really felt for her. I mean, there was definitely like there were parts when she was directly addressing that passivity and just feeling like I'm just kind of going with the flow. I don't really know what I want. I was like, I totally get that. And also like her, not being able to get over her crush from 10 years ago. I was like, girl, I also get that. So like I get like she's definitely a frustrating character, but I was like, she's frustrating in a way that feels very I've felt those things. I've been that frustrating girl failure. Yeah, so I ended up I quite liked her.
Yeah, I think as frustrated as I could get with her, I do not feel like she is like the least likable protagonist we've experienced so far on the podcast. I did not get as frustrated with her as I have with other characters, and I really think like her character arc is strongly written. The moment at the end where she is, her mom is like ragging on her like, oh yeah, well you just go along with everything, so she's clearly just doing this, and she's like, no, like actually I'm with her because I want to be with her and because I love her. And her sister's like, oh my god, my boyfriend doesn't even say that.
Yeah, that was so good. I love
it's a good scene. Also, we can just say Yaguchi out loud. We know that he's the protagonist. You're not into.
I mean, he's not the only one, but
I think maybe it is her sister too who points it out. She's like, she's finally making a choice. Like, look at her. Which is so
I
nice.
really liked the sister affirming that in that moment. Yeah. I thought that was a really good scene.
Yeah. And I did also like how after that her mom's like, well, guess we're all gonna have to go out to dinner because now she is our family. And it was not like, well, you guys can't really be together, etc. It was just like, well, guess this is what's happening. All right, cool, let's go.
Yeah, I like that too. She's like genuinely concerned about her daughter, finding happiness and making up decisions or whatever. And as soon as she does, she's like, okay, got another daughter. That's cool. Let's go to dinner. Like,
hell yeah.
I just really liked her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that because it I don't know, it shows the ways that like compat shows up in our lives that are not even necessarily like direct homophobia, right? Like I think there's a real argument to be made that this mom character still could be homophobic in some ways, but it's like not her being like, but you're two girls, right? Like that's not the argument happening here. The thing is like, you're pregnant and you're gonna get married. Like what you can't do this, you can't upset this many people's lives, which is, it's just a different flavor of compat, but it's interesting to see that one, especially because in manga I'm so used to being being beat over the head with the like homophobia stuff. And some of that's in this book, but like it's almost like flavor on top of the rest of it.
And I think especially because Midori starts out being like, well, we can't be together. Like, we're not allowed to be together. We're two girls. That's not what you do. And then pretty much everyone else in the story is just like, no, that's chill. Like, no one else cares except for the person who feels like everyone else cares, you know? I think that's just that's an interesting take on that.
Even the woman that owns the place that they stay on the second leg of their trip is
she was great.
I really like that.
She's basically like, I don't know what's going on here, but like, you're pregnant. And if you have any issues while you're here, that's going to be on me. And it's way more about like medical liability than it is about the lesbians.
Well, and I was also like, if it also to me read, because we knew that Tazune was such a piece of shit, it also read to me like, if your man comes here looking for you and has, you know, aggressive tendencies, like, I don't want to have to be the one to deal with that.
I really liked the scene with the inn owner as well, where she sort of talks about her whole history of like living in, there's a lot of themes of like, you know, everything that I'm doing is a dream, and I need to wake up and face reality, is what Midori is going through at that point in the story of like, I'm just sort of stuck in this dream and I'm chasing this dream, and reality is very scary. And she talks to this woman who owns this inn, and through that, like getting to the end of that conversation, we have this reveal that this inn owner is presumably a single mother to a son, and has this incredible scene where she talks to him and he's totally like, just like, yeah, whatever, when he comes in, but
whatever,
then
Mom.
Yeah, school, whatever. I got 100 on my math test. Like everybody got 100 on their math test, whatever. But then when he gets to like taking out a piece of art that he did at school, and she's like, whoa, I love this. Look at how pink the sky is. This is so cool. And he just lights up and is like, that's what I thought. And at school they said that the sky couldn't be pink, but I thought that that the sky should be pink. And they have this really touching little moment, and she turns to Midori after this and says, what is it specifically that she says? Because I really like the line. Let me see if I can. Right, because Midori had said earlier, waking up is feels like the saddest thing in the world. And the innkeeper turns to her and says, do I look like the saddest thing in the world to you? While she's like standing, having this happy moment with her son. I really, really liked that whole scene.
Yeah, it was a really good moment.
Definitely like highlights. I loved the way that she turns back around and looks at her.
It's so good. There's a lot of, now that they're talking about it, there's a lot of good like secondary characters in this book. Like the world around our protagonist is interesting. But I just loved her like, cool mom.
Shout out to
it was very touching.
Shout out to cool mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the book ends, if we want to get there, with the two run away together. They get a wedding dress from the consignment shop where Midori works and go take photos, which is so sweet.
They hire a photographer at the last minute.
Yeah, just like shooting photos on the street. It's so good. And they just kind of like run off together. And then there's one more chapter. I was very surprised by what this chapter was, which is Midori's daughter going off to see Komari, running away basically and just showing up on the island. And it's Komari just talking to her about all the problems. She feels like Momo doesn't want her around, and they're having all these issues, and it just becomes this thing of like she just feels like placeless and doesn't know like how to express herself, and just all this really like complex stuff in one chapter. There's like a lot of ground covered that ends with like Momo calling and them kind of reconciling and being a little more open with each other's feelings, because partially because Komari shows her the photo of Midori and Momo as younger people, and explaining like life's hard and you fight with your parents sometimes, and it's important to speak your mind and tell people you love, things like this. It's I really liked this a lot. It came out of left field for me. I was sobbing by the end of it, but part of me likes it just because it's so nice to see like just a stable lesbian couple raising a kid. Like, that's just nice. I just like that. And part of it is just this, like, this understanding that, like, time goes on and, you know, Midori and Momo are not, like, the center of the world. There's the other people around them whose lives that they touch, and just seeing the friendship with Komari and her being able to grow into, like, a mentorship role and dealing with, like, I don't know, there's just something nice about being like, these are our two protagonists who we've been rooting for the whole time. And now we are seeing the way in which they are not perfect people. And, like, even their daughter is, like, sometimes has trouble because of them, and like there's still issues to deal with, and the running off into the sunset moment to get married is not the end of their story. Like, life goes on and people continue to be important to it. I really liked it conceptually. I really appreciated it.
I agree. I really liked the emotional story that was there. I liked the fact that it's, like, clear that Komari remained close with them. Like, it wasn't like, you know, they left and they're like, she's like, you gotta come back, and they're like, yeah, we will. And it's like, yes, they did keep in touch. They did stay close, like, close enough that their daughter feels comfortable, like, up and leaving and just showing up. I liked the, like, whole thing with Kon-chan about being like, yeah, my life is hard because, like, people call me weird because of my mom's, and, like, I'm internalizing it as, like, she's very upset about it, not because, like, she is getting made fun of, but because they are, like, you know, attacking the life that she has to an extent. I think it was a really good story. I didn't like it being the end of this book. I was like, this is a really good story. It being the end of this story, this, like, whole series felt so weird to me. It felt very off. I feel like it would have been fine as, like, there were some of those, the previous ones had, like, bonus episodes or whatever.
This one does too. There's one after that.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been good as one of these bonus episodes. Like, I don't feel like it being the end of the story hit for me like it quite did for you. Like, I still think it was a good chapter, but I feel like it being the end of, like, the canonical end of the story, like, felt very odd to me.
I think I'm with you, Jill. At the same time, I'm just like, man, we don't get to see a lot of, like, like, kids of queer parents in stories, really.
Yeah,
very
in,
often.
like, most stories, we don't get to see it. So I'm like, oh, wow, that's really nice that this is what we see.
Yeah, that was, like, honestly the part that I took most strongly from it. I think it's really interesting to see just, like, not even just someone struggling with it, but, like, specifically the actions that are taken by that person after they are, you know, told they're weird because they have two moms or something like that. Like, that's an interesting thing that I don't see much at all outside of, like, I don't know, maybe Modern Family. And but I agree with you. I think the structurally making it the final chapter of the book is the strange choice to me. If it were, like, the extra story at the end of the volume or whatever, that's one thing. Although, sorry, now I'm just getting to a different topic. Do they actually use the extra story in this one to set up another manga?
It could be. I didn't think about that, but it definitely could. That's funny.
Because it's like Komari, even years after that, talking about, like, someone that she once dated and she's now living in Tokyo.
It's certainly not uncommon in a manga that is, like, this length for a secondary character to end up being the primary character of an additional spin-off manga.
I would love to read the Komari manga. It'd be so, just her adventures in Tokyo. That'd be so fun.
Yeah, I think that would be really fun.
It needs to be photography themed.
Yeah, that would rule.
Yeah, I think I there's a lot in here that I like. There's something about the particular, like, conflict that they framed with Kon and Momo and Midori that didn't feel, it felt like too sort of like a generic parent-child thing and not necessarily as tailored to their particular family, and in a way that I got kind of stuck on. This whole, like, I argued with Momo and she locked me out of the house is, like, that's strange. But I do like a lot of this. I really like the scene where they're on the beach and Kon gets shown the photo, and Komari sees so much of both of her mothers in her. I really like all of that stuff a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good moment.
the framed panel of Kon like standing where her mother's did during the photo.
She has the same. It's the same. Like she's turned exactly the same way that Momo was.
Mm-hmm. I liked the moment where she's like, she looks exactly like both of them, but I probably shouldn't tell her that.
Yeah.
Which is like such a different moment from where in the main story where Komari like sees them and is like, oh my God, you guys are so cute. Like she is not afraid to just shout whatever she thinks.
Komari is a really good like aunt for
oh my God,
yeah.
Like, knows exactly when to talk and when not to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I liked that
Komari's
also
great.
like was a really nice way of showing Komari's growth in like a single chapter of like this girl who used to say whatever was on her mind but struggled to say the hard parts, like knows when it is right to like say things. I was that's really nice.
Yeah. Cool book.
Cool book. The extra chapter at the end is just a funny little another Komari moment like we were talking about where basically she sees an ex and is like, oh shit, here we go again.
I know. Yeah. I like how she's just like, okay, let's get it over. It's fun. So any final thoughts on Runaway With Me, Girl?
I had a good time.
Yeah, good time.
Good time.
I want to read more by this author.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like
this was my thing is I've looking for our further reading for this episode. I found a couple other things from the same author that have been translated into English. And my thought was like, oh, some of those sound like they might be even more interesting than this one. She's written a bunch of stuff, but only a few have been translated into English. And in fact, several of them very recently. I think as of this week was the latest announcement of something being translated into English at the time of recording. So the ones that are available, I think the most recent one is a doujinshi called The Golden Fly, which I believe is about like a 19th century courtesan.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know the details. It was weirdly hard to find details on some of this stuff, but one that has been published by Kodansha, it has its first volume out so far, is a book called Secondhand Sisters, which is about a younger sister stealing her older sister's husband and then them not talking for years and then reuniting like a decade later, which sounds fascinating.
Whoa.
There is a book called And Then There Were No Heroines, which is, I think, coming out soon, but not out yet, which is about a friendship between like a 20-something-year-old girl and like a 60-something-year-old woman, much like me and Willa. And then there's a book called Fatale Game, which I think this one is on K-Manga, which is about
looking at it now.
An author and her editor who form a romance. And I think at least one of them is cheating on a spouse. It sounds fantastic. And the art is really good.
I love an author-editor setup in a manga.
I really want to read that one. So Battan has tons of good stuff.
Battan is messy.
Yeah, I
was like, this girl loves drama.
I need more mess. I'm obsessed with this. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check out Fatale Game. That seems very fun.
I'm obsessed. Also, we've previously read How Do You Relationship, if you want another Yuri manga that gets into the weeds of a lot of messy stuff. Other than those, do folks have things they want to shout out for further reading? Anything this reminded y'all of?
I don't think I have anything, but I wish I did.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. I will have more Yuri for us in the future.
I got to read more Yuri. I got to read more.
Yeah.
Says me, person who's reading a lot this year.
Who's
but I'm
currently reading.
I got to read more.
Several manga series and several book series.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to check any of those out, Runaway With Me, Girl, and I believe Fatale Game are on K-Manga, Kodansha's manga app.
Fatale Game is on K-Manga.
Hell yeah. Of course, you can also find them at your local library or comic shop, which would love your support. I had a really easy time finding this at my library. I was kind of surprised how many copies they had of like each volume. So
that is surprising.
Yeah. If you have like a reasonably large manga collection at your library, they very likely have it. Otherwise, In Sequence is a member of The Wokest Garbage. You can find us online at theworstgarbage.online, where you'll find all of the other lovely shows on the network and an invite to our Discord. You can find me online at Robin Bombas on Blue Sky or robinb.card.co for all my stuff. And panelists, where can folks find you?
I went on a long explanation last time about all the stuff that is going to be out on the channel, but I won't do that again. I will just say there's a lot of stuff going on at youtube.com/@flowstatekrit, and you can check my stuff out there.
Cool.
As usual, you can find me at plottwist.card.co for any links that you may want.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Humblegoat, where you will see me accurately predicting that Nintendo was going to drop Zelda information for my birthday. You can also find me at Humblegoat on Tumblr, and you can see the art that I do, including our podcast cover art, at scoutwilkinson.myportfolio.com.
Hell yeah. And sometimes you can see great sketches of our TTRPG party at Scout's portfolio as well.
Good
Always a
sketches
treat.
of the TTRPG party also show up on the Blue Sky very often.
Yes. Well, until next time when we will be reading Yokohama Kareshi Kiko. It's happening. It's so soon.
It's happening.
I have so much to read.
Yep. Don't worry. It goes fast. Nothing happens.
Don't worry, Matt. It goes very fast, as I found out because I was accidentally reading that instead of this because I thought it was this week.
So we will see you then next week for that. Until then, support your local library and comic shop. And remember, it's not the saddest thing in the world to wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really nice way to end it, Robin.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
TWG, the worst garbage, online.